I'm not sure that would be possible, Michael, if they think that some of these bullets were coming from the left, you know. So there wasn't anybody on the other side of Melly, from what I understand, right?
If we believe the prosecution's placement of everybody, you're right. What I think is interesting is, and Terry mentioned it when we hear from the medical examiner, we'll get more information on this in terms of the distance between the gunshot and the victim and the wound. It's going to create a real finger-pointing session between Cortland Henry and the current defendant, because they're both in the same general area. They're both pretty close to the victims. And, you know, one's in one seat, one's in the other. Again, if you believe the prosecution's placement of these players, I think that may further confuse the jury in terms of really who fired the weapon, because you got two defendants, but only one sitting in front of you. What if it's the other guy? Do I want to make that kind of mistake if I'm on the jury? I think it's going to be very interesting for them. And the ME, it'll be very, very interesting to see how specific that professional can be about this thing.
You know, I keep mentioning this, and I'm going to mention it again. The prosecution said in its opening, Christine Bradley said the medical examiner will testify that those shots from outside the vehicle, you know, the drive-by shots, that they hit Juvie and Sack Chaser when they were already dead. So we're expecting that testimony. It'll be interesting to see how the medical examiner lays this out, and that would bolster the state's theory in that case. Aaliyah030910 from YouTube. Bradford, I know you're going to be leaving us soon. What do you think the defense argument will be? What's the defense other than what they said in opening, that the state can't meet its burden and everything was botched?
I think just exactly what Mike said. My theory of this case is there's two individuals in the car. You can't put the gun into Melly's hand. Not only that, you don't know if they stopped and picked someone else up. You don't know if wherever they went, there was someone else that got in the car, or there was some other deal that was happening. This is going to be, like I said, it's very difficult to say Melly's the one who pulled the trigger. You could say Melly started out in that seat. Certainly, there's a video of him getting into the passenger seat. We don't know if they stopped and he got into the driver's side. We don't know if they stopped, he got out and someone else got in. All those questions are going to be very difficult for someone to answer, to determine whether or not he did it. This is a death penalty case. The jury knows it's a death penalty case. I think they take it even more seriously when it's a death penalty case than when the person is looking at life. You want to be so sure this individual did it, because in the back of your mind, you know there's going to be a second phase if you find guilt. There's going to be a second phase where then you determine whether or not that person should be put to death. I just don't see how a jury looks at this and says, yeah, I'm going to put the gun in his hand, when there's zero evidence to put the gun in his hand. And this person is going to be testifying about
Bradford, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got to cut you off there. We've got this break we've got to hit, but we really appreciate you coming on as usual. Terry, Michael, and I will be right back. I'm Anjanette Levy, and you're watching Law and Crime. Stay with us. So there wasn't anybody on the other side of Melly, from what I understand, right?
If we believe the prosecution's placement of everybody, you're right. What I think is interesting is, and Terry mentioned it when we hear from the medical examiner, we'll get more information on this in terms of the distance between
So there wasn't anybody on the other side of Melly, from what I understand, right?
If we believe the prosecution's placement of everybody, you're right. What I think is interesting is, and Terry mentioned it when we hear from the medical examiner, we'll get more information on it.
From what I understand, right?
If we believe the prosecution's placement of everybody, you're right. What I think is interesting is, and Terry mentioned it when we hear from the medical examiner, we'll get more information on it.
From what I understand, right?
If we believe the prosecution
Shout out to everybody still here. We are literally waiting for these guys to come back. Sorry about earlier. I had a little technical issue. Everything went down over here in my area, but we're back. And we are waiting for said court proceedings to start. So, how everybody doing today, man? Got some people on Kick here. If you on Kick and you haven't subscribed yet, man, you're missing out, dog. You're missing out. If you are here on Kick and you have not subscribed, my friends, you are missing out. We're here every day. We do this every day. We're running it every day. We're running it up every day. YNW Melly. We run this up every day. They're about to come back from their lunch in a second. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about to be 1 o'clock. I believe they're going to start at 1 o'clock. And that's about a minute away. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to get into it. We got a guy, a ballistics expert, that is about to come in and talk about the trajectory of the bullets and why YNW Melly should have been the shooter. We're also going to hear a witness from the defense that's going to debunk said witness from the state. So today should be a very, very, very entertaining day. And I'm going to let you guys recap some of the stuff that I was watching, just so if you did pop in a second ago, you can go ahead and get yourself some more information. We don't got to recap the whole day. I'm gonna bring you back.
All of the parties were aware of that. It's already been live streamed. I think the judge, the prosecution, and the defense really didn't want the courtroom to be cleared, although I will say the defense argued that the courtroom should be cleared so the witness could take off his mask. The defense was really pushing to take off that mask, and I think rightly so. First of all, obviously, Melly has a right to confront and to look and to see and determine whether or not these witnesses are telling the truth, as does the jury. And so the defense really wanted that mask off. The jury was concerned. We had 2 questions from one of the jurors about whether or not that mask was making her uncomfortable, and she also said she wanted a mask, or they wanted the rest of the jury to have a mask. They were concerned about their safety too. So it was a really close call, but I think the judge decided at the end of the day to let him continue wearing his mask. We didn't show his face on our live stream, and ultimately the judge gave an instruction to say, look, he had threats. He's in fear of his life. This is why he has the mask on. This has nothing to do with this case. It's separate and apart. You should not infer anything by the mask. And that instruction, I think, was far more detailed. And I think it put some assurances to the jury that it was okay that this mask was on. So at the end of the day, that was the compromise.
Well, and there are a whole host of issues that come along with closing a courtroom. I mean, if you're going to clear the courtroom, you're essentially closing it. And so the U.S. Supreme Court basically says a hearing would have to be held on that in order for them to close a courtroom, and the media would have to be heard on that. So I think it would be a very tough sell to close the courtroom to the public because of this. The bounty on his head, I can understand